Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CBDC Forum. And this is the second CBDC Forum that we organized in 2020. And as in the last forum that we organized on September 8th, we have around 200 folks who registered for the event. And during the forum that we also announced we changed the CBDC working group to CBDC committee, and where that's the committee started working with the partners on several very exciting initiatives. And quickly that I just go through a little bit of the initiative, and then we can just jump into the first discussion. And for the CBDC forum, that we aim to be the bridge between the central banks and also innovators, and try to use this to just foster collaboration and dialogue. And our next one will be on November 17th, and it's already open for registration. And it will be a whole day event. And here on the website, and later I will just share the website, on the chat link, and you feel free to just check this out. And we have schedules and everything here. And then I also want to just share with you of some of the initiatives that FinTech for Good and the World Economic Council have launched in the past few years. In addition to the CBDC committee, that we also launched the Sustainable Housing Task Force, and where that's through this work that we try to just use the blockchain and other emerging technology to make housing affordable, eco-friendly, smart, healthy, and safe. And this our main vehicle through this task force is the housing accelerator, and where we work with municipality and a development company to just scale up innovation. We launched the China Digital Finance Advisory Group last year, and this is a group of experts from China who is supporting the international process, especially with the UN Secretary General Digital Financing for SDG Task Force. We provided a use case from China on how digital finance has been used in China, and which reflected, some of the insights reflected in the final report. And then we also launched the DeFi Alliance 2 years ago, and where we organized the DeFi Tech Talk, and also help the members to understand the different jurisdiction, and build a collaboration among folks from one country with another country, to make sure that DeFi not only benefit internal transaction, but also benefit the cross-border transaction. We also contributed to the many initiatives launched by other organizations, but we are a core member of those initiatives. This includes, the UN Secretary General Digital Financing for SDG Task Force. We provided support, and also UN SCAP ESPN Digital Economy Task Force, and the Future of Sustainable Data Alliance, FinTech in China Show, the Global FinTech Index, Asia Pacific Institute for Digital Economy, and many other alliance and initiative that we are part of. And feel free to just go to the blockchainfrontier.org initiative, check them out. And of course, that today is the DeFi, the CBDC talk, and we want to also share with you of our CBDC related initiative. One is the CBDC Awards, and we try to just use this to identify leadership, innovation, technology, and the best practice in CBDC. So the countries and also central banks understand where then they can find the right CBDC expertise and the technologies they can partner with. Then the CBDC expert roster, and where that will just host this roster and as a database where that again to help corporate and the central bank to just connect with experts from different countries. Later, Michelle, you can just share from the African side that you're working on, and one of the key barriers for CBDC to just advance in many developing countries is the capacity gap. So the expert roster and also the CBDC learning panel are all just to try to fill this gap. Where for the learning panel, that's we are developing this certification framework where that's we can use the certification framework to just provide CBDC training and then certify professionals who can just take on CBDC related tasks, especially in developing countries. We'll provide scholarship specific for developing country government officials and private sector. And lastly, the CBDC Tech Global Pitch, where that's we will just through the global pitch, we'll just highlight or feature the CBDC related tech and make them available for the central banks and other corporate partners. And as of now, for the academy, that we have 8 CBDC related course, and central bank digital currency, an introduction. We have the blockchain solution for CBDC and design principles, retail CBDC, CBDC for policymakers, CBDC for business, and also CBDC for sustainable development, and then the design thinking workshop. So as I said earlier, that's we will make scholarship for developing countries, and hope our first delivery will be on November 17th. For November 17th, the half day will be the CBDC Forum and half day will be the training. And this will be the past delivery, and we welcome partners to just join us, no matter as expert or as the participants. And we for the first delivery, we'll just curate a group of 30 people. Half of them will come from developing country, half will from the developed country, and we'll test the delivery, and you're welcome to join us on this. And lastly, that I want to mention about the thought leadership of CBDC that we are preparing. And one is that we'll have we have launched the monthly newsletter, and which feature different pieces of CBDC development in different countries. And we'll also have a CBDC blog, where that's will highlight CBDC committee members research and also news where that's progress has been made. And you're welcome to just share with us of different pieces that you're working on, and of course that feel free to just subscribe of the newsletter, and you can just go to the site and subscribe. And without further ado, and I want to just again welcome everyone, and this is the second CBDC Forum we organized, and today that we have 3 sessions, and I just checked our registration link, and we have around 110 folk who registered for this. And after the forum, that's we'll just share the recording to whoever registered for the forum, and also we'll just add it later, and many of the recording will be shared as specific topic and the presentations as within our academy later to be shared with broader community. And without further ado, and I'd like to just introduce you to our 3 panels of today. And the first panel is on CBDC and DeFi, a global debate, and where that's we focus on really, the relationship or between CBDC and the DeFi. And we have amazing panelists who are here with us. And the second one that will focus on the latest development on CBDC, and also the research which have been published, and highlight those research, what have been, progress have been made. And the third panel, which will be, on a different Zoom link, and whoever in the first two panels who are interested in the third one, and I will share the Zoom link of the third panel later in the chat box. And the third panel will start from 1:30 p.m. EST. So if you are in Asia, probably you are not able to join the third panel. And so yeah, without further ado, the third panel that will focus mainly on country case study. And without further ado, and I'd like to just introduce the first panel. We have Izetzel, and who is working on or responsible for the CBDC work in Celo Foundation. And then we have Richard, and who is investor, long-term investor in blockchain-related projects, who have also contributing to many different thought leadership events globally. And our last meeting was when I was with Richard in Davos, where he contributed to many events there as well. And Michelle is also very active in UK and Africa, and mostly globally. And she has been instrumental in several governments blockchain-related work. Just recently, that she organized the CBDC Forum for Africa, and later she can share more. And now that I'd like to invite Michelle, that you please share with us your thoughts on CBDC, and also especially I'm interested to learn more about the event you organized on CBDC in Africa.
Sure, fantastic. Thanks so much, Shushen. It's great to be here. I had just a couple of slides. Let me see if I can share them, if you let me.
Yes, and you can now.
Okay, great. So can you see?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Yes, so I mean, in terms of CBDC, I think one of the really exciting things that we've certainly starting to see is actually the appetite to actually understand a little bit more around what central bank digital currencies actually mean in terms of from a national perspective. So our work has been very heavily focused on working with governments and central banks to really start to map out what opportunities and what challenges CBDC offers. And one of, a lot of our work has been mainly focused in the emerging market side of things. So one of the things that we're very, very keen on is actually to provide some research and feasibility around the topic before jumping into whether we want to, look at implementing or not. And we focus quite heavily, of course, on the emerging markets, especially more on the Africa end, because I don't think there's been less of a prominence in terms of looking what the impacts are from the African context. So one of the things we did really focus on was actually, can we start to have the engagement or the conversation about CBDC more widely with stakeholders in the marketplace? And that's what really drove us to hold the event that we did. This was literally about a week or so that we had the CBDC Africa event. This is the first time that, on the continent that we actually held an event to discuss the topic at a more wider sort of discussion. And there we had, sort of attendees coming from different circles, a lot from the central banks, attending, but also government representatives, We had, fintech operators as well. And the conversation was really designed in such a way to say, okay, from different perspective, from the perspective of, people designing or potential designers of CBDC, what are your thoughts around CBDC? From the government, and what are your thoughts about CBDC? And then because one of the things that's been bagged with CBDC is the financial inclusion aspect. So for us, it was really to undig a little bit more to understand, actually, can central bank digital currencies actually help to push financial inclusion? We had a very, very good response in terms of, obviously, 600 people, kind of signed on to attend the event. And a very wide range of speakers, mainly from the African ground, so innovators and players coming in to actually have that conversation. Now, in terms of the actual response from that, I think a lot of people, we left the discussion with a lot of question marks around, actually, what does it mean in terms of, different countries, given that Africa has so many different countries, and obviously the geographic makeup, the financial makeup, the economic development levels of these countries will very much vary, which again sits very, very well in our argument around, actually, if you're going to look at central bank digital currencies, you have to be very, very careful in navigating that space, because a lot of the countries are looking at this from a very different angle. And one of the things that we did conclude on is, actually, in order for a CBDC to be actually viable in different markets, it has to have that element of bringing stability, financial stability, and looking at, monetary policy and how that will impact at national level. So starting from that basis, what does it actually mean? Now, there's not been a lot of work that's been done to actually map that out. And I think it's very important what you were saying earlier on when you did your introduction, Sheshen, that it's important that, as a global community, we start to look a little bit more into the detail of CBDC. The opportunities for CBDC are massive, and we agree, quite heavily that there's potential for CBDC to actually create that environment where we're getting a lot of people who are unbanked, with access to the financial markets and to access to financial stability. Give Nigeria, for example, which is where we hosted the event, about 60 million people are unbanked in Nigeria and don't have access to financial markets. So there's a very, very strong market there, both for decentralized finance, DeFi, as well as, looking into CBDC. But can we actually implement central bank digital currencies? Are the countries have the resources? Do they have the financial structures? Have they got the environment to actually do that? The other interesting thing that we don't hear so much about is more around the people element. So one of the things that we have looked very, very closely is actually, how is this going to impact people? Because in order for CBDC to be adopted, you have to have that adoption from the community. So, if the community is more geared towards very, very used to, dealing with things like cash, for example, how are you going to transition and ensure that people are able to onboard with the central bank digital currencies? Are the central banks themselves equipped to be in a place to provide that liquidity? I think we kind of lean towards the argument that wholesale CBDC is very, very, has massive potential, I think, on the African context, especially when you're thinking about things like remittances and cross-border, interactions, and then that interbank, sort of engagements, relationships, they are massive opportunities. But even in the development of wholesale CBDC, there's still quite a number of questions, especially on the design element. So we kind of park that on one side. On the retail side, again, it's more around, we did conclude that the technology bit isn't so much of the challenge, but the other kind of structural issues around the people element, the resources, the governance structures that exist in a lot of these countries, the rules and regulating and the policy environment that is there. How can we ensure that's sort of tailored in such a way that it fits? Then we discuss more around, because of course, when you're looking at emerging markets, a lot of emerging markets are driven by medium and small enterprises. So the opportunities for those small, medium enterprises to access liquidity is quite exciting. And I think CBDC, as well as DeFi, plays a pretty interesting role, in terms of helping to see how we can shift that in the future. And that's something that everybody is kind of very, very supportive of. As I said, of course, countries like Nigeria, even Kenya is very used to, mobile money sort of situation or digital payments systems. So those markets are not necessarily unfamiliar with digitization of this sort. But even with that, I think you're going to have a hybrid situation where you have you know, where how I see CBDC working in this country is actually where you have a hybrid model, where you can introduce a level of CBDC, but also you maintain some of the traditional, you know, financing structures that are there in these countries. And this is kind of what we really sort of wrapped up with. So we still have questions around things like how do we do, what are the design? And then the big elephant in the room is more around the capacity building as well, which was talked about earlier on. So for us, we're very, very interested in helping to support the capacity building around this area. And also really looking very, very deeply, you know, in detail in terms of looking at national level, what are the impacts? Because as most people know, you know, the monetary policy issue is really driven at national level, and it's important to understand that a little bit. But very, very exciting times ahead. We still need to undig, we still need to be very cautious in terms of how we promote CBDC in a lot of these countries, because they might not necessarily be at a level where we start to introduce this straight away. And that's it from my end.